The date was June 8, 793 AD. The island of Lindisfarne, nestled off the northeastern coast of England, was home to one of the most revered Christian monasteries in the region. Life there moved slowly and quietly. Monks tended their fields, observed their prayers, and kept to the rhythms of a deeply spiritual existence. Then the longboats arrived. A force of Norse warriors descended on the island with brutal efficiency. The monks had no weapons, no defenses, and no warning. The raiders cut through them without resistance, killing many, seizing the church's sacred relics, and loading everything of value onto their ships before vanishing back into the sea. It might seem strange to target a house of worship, but medieval monasteries were, in reality, treasure vaults. Gilded crosses, gem-studded manuscripts, ornaments of gold and silver. Centuries of devotion had filled these places with extraordinary wealth. The Vikings walked out with fortunes they hadn't even imagined possible. With that single raid, a new era was born. The sack of Lindisfarne wasn't just an isolated act of violence, it was a blueprint. Once Norse chieftains witnessed how easily undefended holy sites could be looted, they began launching coordinated campaigns against monasteries, churches, and fortresses stretching across the British Isles and far beyond. Their reach extended through Baltic coastlines, Russian river networks, the North Atlantic, and across the North Sea. Wealth wasn't merely a reward for these raids, it was a political necessity. A Viking chieftain's authority rested entirely on his ability to attract and retain loyal, capable warriors. Gold and silver bought that loyalty. Raiding delivered it at no cost beyond the risk of battle, a risk the Vikings were more than willing to accept. Death in combat held no terror for Norse warriors. Quite the opposite. Their belief system promised that those who fell gloriously in battle would be escorted by Valkyries, divine warrior maidens, directly to Valhalla. There, in that legendary hall of the gods, fallen heroes would feast, drink, and relive their greatest conquests in the company of Odin himself. Battle wasn't something to be survived. For many Vikings, it was something to be earned. Those who did die fighting were honored with elaborate burials. Some were cremated on open pyres. Others were laid to rest in the ground alongside their most prized belongings, a practice known as grave goods. The belief was straightforward. Whatever you were buried with would travel with you into the afterlife. Finely crafted jewelry, engraved blades, pouches of gold and silver coins, all of it went into the earth with the dead. These weren't just offerings. They were extensions of identity, personal statements that followed a warrior beyond death. Over the course of several centuries of raiding and conquest, the Vikings buried unimaginable wealth in graves and hoards scattered across the known world. Much of it was never retrieved. No maps were drawn, no records kept. Scholars estimate the cumulative value of undiscovered Viking treasure could reach into the billions, but no one knows where to look. In 1840, laborers working to reinforce a riverbank in northwestern England made a startling discovery. A decaying chest, lined with lead, buried just beneath the surface. Inside was one of the most remarkable Viking hoards ever uncovered, roughly 8,500 pieces of silver, including coins, ingots, and jewelry, all dating to somewhere between 903 and 910 AD. The find electrified the public. Archaeologists mobilized. Amateur enthusiasts grabbed shovels. Across England, anyone who'd ever heard the word Viking began eyeing the ground beneath their feet with fresh suspicion. The craze yielded real results. Through the 1880s, coin finds in northeastern England reached values equivalent to $200,000. A 1912 discovery in Scotland was worth upwards of $800,000. A silver hoard unearthed in Herefordshire came in at an estimated $4 million. By the early 2000s, however, enthusiasm had given way to a sobering conclusion. Every documented Viking settlement in England had been systematically searched, researched, and searched again by professionals and hobbyists alike, armed with everything from shovels to modern metal detectors. The consensus among many historians and archaeologists was clear. The English countryside had given up its secrets. The hoards were gone. If England was exhausted, treasure hunters reasoned, perhaps the answer lay closer to the source. Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, held a special significance in Norse cosmology. It was the homeland, the launching point for centuries of expansion, and the land most intimately connected with Viking spiritual life. Warriors who could be buried there faced a shorter journey to Valhalla. That logic pointed directly to burial mounds. Dozens of them lined the Scandinavian coastline, their grassy humps rising from the earth like silent sentinels. Each one potentially concealed the remains and riches of a great Norse warrior. In 1879, two teenage brothers on a farm in Gokstad, Norway, pestered their father into letting them dig into one such mound on their family's land. A few feet down, their tools struck wood. Deeper still, they broke through into a burial chamber containing human remains. The boys sprinted back to their father, who immediately contacted Oslo University. The following year, archaeologist Nikolai Nikolaisen arrived on site. What he uncovered reshaped the world's understanding of Viking burial customs. Preserved beneath the mound was a 78-foot-long ship, nearly 1,000 years old and remarkably intact. It hadn't been placed near water, it was the grave. The ship itself was the statement. The man buried within must have commanded immense power and respect to receive a send-off on this scale. Surrounding the burial chamber were the sacrificed remains of 12 horses, 8 dogs, and 2 peacocks, all apparently offered up to serve their master in the next world. The tomb had been raided before, likely multiple times, perhaps even during the Viking Age itself. Most of its artifacts were gone, but the thieves had missed a few things: golden fishhooks, ivory amulets, bronze bracelets tucked into shadowed corners. Enough remained to hint at what had once been there. Reports of the Gokstad ship sent a new wave of treasure hunters sweeping across Scandinavia. Norwegians, Swedes, and Danes combed their coastlines in search of burial mounds of comparable grandeur. Most found nothing of significance: small, unmarked graves, the resting places of ordinary people rather than chieftains. Technology eventually transformed the search. Ground-penetrating radar, LiDAR scanning, drone surveys, and satellite imaging opened up possibilities that previous generations couldn't have imagined. Structures invisible to the naked eye became detectable from above or below. But technology cuts both ways. Authorities have grown increasingly concerned that advanced tools are being used not by researchers, but by illegal diggers. There is credible suspicion that significant Viking finds have been quietly made and quietly sold. Their contents funneled into black markets, their locations never disclosed. If that's the case, the true scale of what has already been discovered may never be known. Somewhere beneath the soil of England, Norway, and beyond, more of that ancient wealth almost certainly remains, waiting, as it has for over 1,000 years, for someone to find it.